There are many ways to look at solving multi-step equations, and there isn't any one way that's better than the other. So take a look at this problem here. It's 2 multiplied by the quantity of x plus 4 divided by 3 minus 8. So one of the things that you could say is, well, I'm going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides. So you could add 8 to both sides, and then you will have 2 parentheses x plus 4 all divided by 3 equals 40. And then you might say, well, now I'm going to multiply both sides by 3, and these 3's will cancel out. So we're left with 2x plus 4 equals 120. Now, you could distribute the 2 to the x and the 4. Sorry, that's 2x plus 8 equals 120. And then you would subtract 8 from both sides. And then you might say that that's going to give you 112 divided by 2. And you've got x is 56. Let's take a look at a slightly different way. You could still go ahead and add 8 to both sides. You get 2 plus 4 is 3 equals 40. And then you could multiply everything by 3 to clear that denominator. But here's where you could do something differently. If you look at this over here, this is very similar to just saying 2 times something. Let's say it's just like x or y. And if you were to go ahead and use inverse operations, you would divide by 2. Same thing in this case. You can go ahead and divide this by 2, which simplifies these, but still leaves you what's in the parentheses. And then you could subtract 4, and you would get 56. Same answer, but just different ways of doing it. You might look at this problem and say, well, I guess I could go ahead and distribute, or if you remember, you could just simply divide everything by 4. Those would cancel out. You have p minus 15 is 8. Add 15 to both sides, and p is 23. If you distributed, you would end up with 4p minus 60 equals 32. Add 60. 4p is 92. And then you'd have to go off to the side. 2, 8, 12. And you would get p is 23. Same thing. You can do whichever way you want. 4x plus 14 is 22. So go ahead and pause this, solve it, turn this back on, follow along, see if you get the answer. I'm going to go ahead and do my little bars down there, subtract 14 from both sides. Why are we subtracting first? We're subtracting first because you do the inverse operations and you undo the adding and subtracting first, and then you undo the multiplying and dividing second. It's opposite of the order of operations. Your answer here is x equals 2. And you could go ahead and take that, plug it back in. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 14 is 22. Negative 6x minus 3 is 39. Pause the video, see if you're going to get this answer when you're done. You've got inverse here, so you're going to add 3 to both sides. Negative 6x equals 42. Divide both sides by negative 6. X equals negative 7. We did these on page 7 in our spiral. It's called fraction and decimal busting. Sometimes working with fractions can be a little intimidating, and you have to change the denominators when you're doing your adding and subtracting. So in this case, we're actually going to get rid of these denominators right here. We're going to get rid of these. by finding the least common multiple. You want to find like the common denominator of 3 and 2. And if you remember, that would be 6. So look what happens if we multiply both sides by 6 over 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and distribute, and I'm not going to simplify right now. 6 times 2x is 12x. 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 5 is 30. 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6 over 2. Now if you notice, we can actually simplify these. Okay, this is 12 divided by 3, which is 4x. 30 divided by 2 is 15. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And if you add 15 to both sides, we have 4x equals 12, and divide by 4, and x equals 3. Now that is the same answer that you would get if you had gone ahead and just changed all these denominators to 6, change negative 1/2 to negative 3/6, and change 2x over 3 to 4/6, then change this to negative 15 over 6. You'd get the same answer. But here, it might be a little bit easier to work with without having all the denominators in there. Let's take a look at another one. 3/4 x minus 5/8 x equals negative 9. Okay, you've got 4 and 8. And go ahead and just put a 1 over under there. Common denominator is 8. You'll notice I write it on both sides so I don't forget. And I'm going to distribute, but I'm not going to simplify right now. 8 times 3x is 24 over 4x. This is negative 40 over 8x equals negative 72. Now I'm going to simplify. 24 divided by 4 is 6x minus 5x equals negative 72. X is negative 72. Why don't you go ahead and try this problem on your own. 2/3 y minus 2/5 equals 5. Go ahead and pause, try it out, and turn it back on. See if you get this. Common denominator of 3 and 5 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. Another 30. 75. This is 10y minus 6 equals 75. Add 6. 10y is 81. Divide both sides by 10. Y is 8.1. Pretty cool. Let's take a look at this problem. This is decimal busting. We have 25 hundredths x plus 6/10 equals 1/10. So you've got hundredths and tenths. So you're going to want to go with the larger place value and multiply everything by 100. Remember, you're going to move the decimal point twice. 25x plus 60 equals 10. Got to annex that 0 in there. You're going to subtract 60 from both sides. 25x equals negative 50. Divide both sides by 25, and x equals negative 2. Same answer as you would have gotten as if you had just subtracted the 6/10 from both sides. So like with the other ones, go ahead and pause and see how you do with this problem. We're going to multiply everything by 100, which would make this 500, which would make that 68, and that will be 120, because you got to put that 0, x, oops, plus. So you're going to subtract 68. You have 120x equals 432. Divide both sides by 120, and x is 3.6. These are some problems that are in your book. On page 16, numbers 27 and 36 are fraction and decimal busting. And then 18, 20, and 24 are just the regular old multi-step. Give them a shot, see how you do.